I want you to meet two people. The first earns $180,000 a year as a sales director. Drive to his house and you'll see a leased BMW in the driveway, a boat under a cover in the side yard, and a doorbell camera guarding packages that arrive almost daily. Inside, there's a home theater room he set up during a burst of enthusiasm 2 years ago and now uses maybe 4 times a year. He pays for 6 streaming subscriptions, a meal kit service he forgot to cancel, and a storage unit 15 minutes away holding furniture from an apartment he moved out of in 2021. He makes 6 figures. He has less than $4,000 in savings. The second earns $61,000 a year as a physical therapist. Drive to her place and you'll see a 10-year-old Honda with a dent she never bothered fixing. Inside, there's a functional kitchen, a bookshelf with books she's actually read, and 1 streaming subscription she rotates depending on what she's watching. She has no storage unit, no boat, no lease payment. She invests $1,100 a month and has a fully funded emergency fund. At his income, he should be building wealth twice as fast as her. He isn't building any at all. This is the paradox almost nobody in personal finance talks about honestly. Income and wealth are only weakly connected. What actually predicts how fast someone builds wealth isn't how much they earn, it's how much of what they earn they let stick around. And the biggest leak in most people's finances isn't a single bad decision, it's the slow, compounding cost of everything they own. Economists have a name for what happens to the man in the story above: lifestyle creep, sometimes called hedonic adaptation. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman and economist Angus Deaton's well-known research on income and well-being found that emotional well-being rises with income only to a point whereafter additional income buys comfort, but not much additional happiness. Yet spending usually keeps climbing anyway because the baseline of what feels normal keeps rising with it. You get a raise, your apartment feels small, you upgrade that. You get another raise, your car feels dated, you upgrade that too. Nothing about this process is irrational in the moment. It's just quietly fatal to wealth building because each upgrade doesn't just cost money once, it costs money in a loop. Minimalism isn't a lifestyle aesthetic. Used correctly, it's a wealth-building system that breaks this loop, and it works faster than income growth because it attacks the denominator, what you keep, instead of the numerator, which most people spend years trying and failing to grow. Here's how it actually works, rule by rule. Most people budget for the purchase price of an item and stop there, but almost everything you own behaves like a subscription. It bills you again and again in space, upkeep, and attention. Take a home gym setup, one of the most common smart investment purchases people justify to themselves. A modest setup, rack, bench, plates, a couple of machines, runs $3,000 to $6,000 up front. But self-storage industry data consistently shows finished basement or garage space effectively costs homeowners in maintained square footage, and equipment that isn't used degrades, needs occasional part replacement, and takes up room that could otherwise be rented out, converted, or simply left empty and stress-free. Gym industry research has repeatedly found that a large share of home equipment purchases go largely unused within a year of purchase. The enthusiasm curve for home fitness gear drops off fast. The $4,000 rack becomes a $4,000 clothes valet. The subscription mindset forces a different question before buying. Not, can I afford this today, but whether the version of you 2 years from now will still want it. This single reframe does more work than most budgeting apps. Behavioral economists call this temporal discounting. Our tendency to overweight how something feels right now and underweight how we'll feel about it later. It's the same bias that makes people buy gym memberships in January and stop going by March. Someone practicing minimalist money habits runs every non-essential purchase through this filter deliberately. Will future me actually use this, or is present me just trying to feel something right now? This test alone eliminates most treat-yourself purchases, because most of them aren't really about the object. They're about relieving a temporary feeling of stress, boredom, or comparison. The item rarely delivers on that promise past the first week.
The physical therapist in the opening story doesn't decide every month whether to invest. The decision was made once, and now it's automatic. This matters more than almost any other single habit because willpower is a depleting resource, and automation isn't. A well-known behavioral finance study by Richard Thaler and Shlomo Benartzi, Save More Tomorrow, found that automatically escalating retirement contributions, without requiring an active decision each time, dramatically increased how much people actually saved compared to programs that relied on people opting in manually. The lesson generalizes far beyond retirement accounts. Automation beats intention every time, because intention has to survive a bad day, a tempting ad, and a friend's exciting new purchase. Automation doesn't have to survive anything. It already happened before you had the chance to talk yourself out of it. Some spending buys comfort, some spending buys convenience, but a huge amount of spending, especially among high earners, buys identity. The Bode says, "I'm the kind of person who's outdoorsy." The BMW says, "I've made it." The home theater says, "I'm someone who entertains." The problem isn't wanting an identity, it's that identity spending is the most expensive kind because it comes with an audience, real or imagined, that makes it hard to downgrade later without feeling like a step backward. Minimalist earners cap this category deliberately. They pick one or two areas where identity spending genuinely matters to them and let everything else stay plain. The sales director from the opening story didn't need a boat, a home theater, and a luxury lease. He needed one thing that mattered, and permission to let the rest be ordinary. Most people mentally price things against their stated hourly wage, but your true hourly wage, after taxes, after commuting time, after the recovery time big purchases often demand, working extra hours to afford a boat, spending weekends maintaining it, is usually far lower than the number on your pay stub. This isn't a new idea, it's the core insight of Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez's Your Money or Your Life, which reframed every purchase as a trade of life energy, not just currency. A $6,000 boat isn't a $6,000 decision. At a true hourly wage that accounts for taxes and the extra hours often worked to afford lifestyle upgrades, it can easily represent 150 to 200 hours of your actual life. Framed that way, a lot of purchases that feel reasonable at a glance stop feeling reasonable at all. People keep things not because they're useful, but because they were expensive. This is the sunk cost fallacy applied to physical objects, and it's one of the most expensive habits nobody names. The treadmill stays because I paid $1,200 for it. The formal wear stays because it was $400, but the money's already spent. Keeping the object doesn't get it back. It just keeps costing you closet space, moving costs, and mental clutter for an expense that's long gone either way. Minimalist earners separate the purchase decision, already made, unchangeable, from the keep or sell decision, still open, still yours to make freely. Selling the unused treadmill for $300 isn't losing $900. It's converting dead storage into $300 you didn't have yesterday. Categories like clothing, kitchenware, and cables tend to expand quietly until they take over a room. A 1-in-1 out rule slows growth. A 1-in-2 out rule actually shrinks it over time, which matters if you're starting from a place of genuine excess rather than just trying to maintain a steady state. This isn't about deprivation. It's about setting a mechanical brake on accumulation so you're not relying on willpower or annual purges to keep things under control. Growth that isn't actively checked doesn't stay flat. It compounds, just like debt does. The physical therapist in this story figured out early what her version of enough looked like. A reliable car, a comfortable apartment, food she enjoys, and money for the occasional trip. Every dollar earned past that baseline goes straight to investing because there's no moving target absorbing it. This is the single biggest structural difference between people who build wealth quickly and people who don't, regardless of income. Research on income and happiness, including a 2023 collaboration between Kahneman and psychologist Matthew Killingsworth, found that for most people, happiness continues rising with income well past $75,000, but only for people who aren't unhappy for other reasons. The takeaway isn't that money doesn't matter, it's that beyond a defined enough, more money buys diminishing returns unless it's converted into something that actually compounds: savings, investments, time, health. Spent on lifestyle inflation instead, it mostly just resets the baseline you're used to and leaves you no further ahead emotionally or financially. Every possession requires not just money, but time. Cleaning it, organizing it, insuring it, deciding what to do with it. High earners often have more money than time, which makes this cost invisible until it isn't. A Federal Reserve survey on household finances has repeatedly found that a large share of Americans, even with solid incomes, couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. Not because they don't earn enough, but because so much of what they earn is already committed to maintaining a lifestyle with no slack in it. Minimalist earners treat time and attention as a budget line, not an afterthought. Fewer possessions means fewer decisions, less maintenance, and more hours that go towards things that actually build wealth or well-being. A side project, sleep, a real vacation instead of a staycation spent organizing a garage. Net worth is useful, but it's abstract. A more motivating number is how many months could you go without earning anything before you'd be in trouble. This single metric, sometimes called a runway calculation, reframes saving from a chore into a countdown toward genuine freedom. The sales director in the opening story, despite his income, has roughly 2 weeks of runway. The physical therapist has close to 2 years. If either of them lost their job tomorrow, only one of them has real choices. That gap, not their salaries, is the actual measure of who's further ahead financially.
None of these 10 rules require earning more. All 10 require keeping more of what you already earn, and every one of them compounds. A dollar not spent on a subscription-like possession is a dollar that can be invested. Invested consistently, even modest monthly amounts grow substantially over time, thanks to compound returns. This is simple, well-documented math, not a hack. The gap between the person who plugs these leaks and the person who doesn't isn't linear. It widens every year, the same way debt widens every year for the person on the other side of the equation. That's the real answer to why minimalism builds wealth faster than a high salary alone ever could. Income growth is slow, taxed, and capped by your job. Expense reduction is immediate, untaxed, and limited only by how honestly you're willing to look at what you actually own and why you're still paying for it. Go back to the 2 people from the beginning. The sales director isn't a bad person, and he isn't bad with money in any dramatic way. He just never separated "I can afford this" from "this is worth what it actually costs me." The physical therapist didn't get ahead by earning more. She got ahead by deciding, early and deliberately, what enough looked like and letting everything else go. Same options, very different math. The math, as always, favors the person who does it on purpose.